In the gospel reading, we have that great question, who is my neighbor? And we notice how the Lord sets this up. He uses a Samaritan as the example, someone whom the Jewish people would have had no time for, someone that they rejected, actually thought kind of less than themselves. That's who the Lord used as the example, to be able to say, here's one who you look at as a second-class citizen, and yet that's the one who rises up and is neighbor to this individual who fell in with the robbers. It's a great opportunity for all of us to be able to look at that, because when our Lord speaks in the first reading, and God speaks in the first reading through Isaiah, telling us to loose the bands of wickedness, undo the bundles that oppress, let the broken go free, and so on, we can look at some of that and think, I don't have any ability to do that. But we do. Maybe we can't do certain things on the objective level, but we certainly can on the subjective level. Who are you being neighbor to? Or who are you not being neighbor to, as the case may be? In other words, is there somebody that you personally have bound up? Somebody that you've got in shackles? Somebody that you're breaking? And of course, on the physical level, the answer is no. I don't have anybody in a cage in my basement. Nobody is handcuffed to my doorknob or whatever. That's not the point. The question is, what's in the heart? Is there somebody that we're not forgiving? Is there somebody that we are holding any kind of grudge against? Is there someone or some race that we are prejudiced against? Are we able to recognize the dignity of each and every person? That's where we can look at that and say, am I actually being neighbor to these people? The Lord, remember, told us that if you love only those who love you, he said, what good is that? He said, even pagans do that. If you're kind only to those who are kind to you, he said, yeah, so do the tax collectors. So he's calling us to a higher level. He's calling us to be able to recognize the dignity of each and every person. And what's even more astounding about that is, on one hand, when we can say, well, as the saints would say, I can see Jesus in those people. And maybe that's true if we're looking at one another. But I think of Mother Teresa of Calcutta, who said that, who was working with people who were not baptized. In other words, on a spiritual level, Jesus wasn't there. They weren't baptized. They weren't in the state of grace. And yet she could see the Lord in them because they're made in his image and likeness. Maybe the supernatural part wasn't there, but the natural was. And she was able to look beyond everything else. She was able to see the dignity of the individual. And she was able to treat those people with the respect and dignity that they should deserve. Again, you're not necessarily being asked to go to the streets of Calcutta to be able to do this. Not necessarily even being asked to go to the streets of the Twin Cities to do this. But each one of us is being asked to go to the streets of our own heart. Where have we thrown someone in the ditch? Where have we kicked somebody to the curb? Where are we doing something that is not right? Is there somebody we're looking at as being less than me, a lower class than me, lesser of a person than me, whatever it might be? Is there somebody that I'm looking down upon? Those are all things that we can look at, because these are the things that stand in the way of being able to come to the Lord. Because Jesus said, or God said through Isaiah the prophet, when you do these things, he said, then you will call and I will hear. You'll cry out and I'll say, here I am. And he said, then your light will shine in the darkness, and your darkness will be as the noonday. So in other words, the very reason for the Israelite people that they were in the condition that they were in was because of their own injustice. They were the chosen people of God. We know these days, they probably didn't know that back then, but these days we can say the Jewish people, the Semite people, are the most intelligent people in the world. So you've got the chosen people, you've got extremely intelligent people, you've got people who are very capable, very artistic, they're very astute, they've got lots and lots of ability. And it'd be very easy for them to look down their nose at others because they're not as smart as I am, or they're not part of the chosen people and I am, or whatever the case may be. And that's what got them in trouble. Sometimes looking at others among their own people who may have been in difficult circumstances for whatever reason, but oftentimes, as we even see in the gospel, looking at other people or people from other nations. And again, you can make the distinction, as God does often, between the Jews and the Gentiles. But even though that distinction is there, God is calling them to treat the Gentiles with respect, to recognize their dignity, to be able to love their neighbor. That's what Jesus is calling us to a higher degree now. That's a great challenge for us. So if you have the opportunity out on the streets, absolutely. Can you help somebody? Can you do an act of kindness for somebody? But what about your own heart? Again, it's easy sometimes even to see somebody with a flat tire and pull over and help them, or somebody who's in trouble and you can give them some money, whatever the case might be. That's relatively easy compared to what's going on the inside. Maybe there's somebody in your own family. Maybe there's an old friend. Maybe there's somebody, whatever the case may be. Those are the ones that we tend to hang on to. Those are the ones we've got all bound up and we're not treating with the respect or seeing with the dignity that they have. Those are the ones we also need to look at. So yes, if there is somebody that you're looking at as less than you, I mean, the silly part of that is if you look at another human being that way, for whatever reason, they're from this country, or they have this color skin, or they speak this language, or whatever the case might be, remember, we're all equal. If they're less than you, you just made yourself less than because they're equal to you. So even if you do it out of totally selfish reasons, which would be totally the wrong reason, you still want to see everybody else's dignity because they're equal to you. But we don't want to do anything out of selfishness. We want to do everything out of charity. And so looking at the dignity of the person, whoever they may be, treating them with that dignity, and then looking within our own hearts, being able to loose the bonds, to be able to break the shackles, to be able to do whatever needs to be done. If there's unforgiveness, if there's animosity, if there's judgmentalism, whatever it may be, let's look at that stuff so that that can get out of our hearts, so that when we turn to God in prayer, He will hear us. He will say to us, "Here I am," because we are doing what He has asked us to do. We are loving God and loving neighbor.